We have the best player in America. And, just saying that because the numbers in this world of analytics, the numbers say that she is. And the whole stat sheet says that she is. And everybody that watched knows it.
I made it like that. I bought it like that. I'm living like that. I made it like that.
And so let's go ahead and get into it. And so I finally figured it out. I finally figured out why there's this big craze when it comes to Caitlin Clark and why they've been pumping her for the last 2 years nonstop, 24/7. And it's not just because she's a great basketball player. And it's not just because her teams win. And it's not even because she's white. It's because she's lily white.
Caitlin Clark, as you know, is white. Her coach, Lisa Bluter, she's white also. Most of Clark's teammates are white. Iowa is seen as the white Cinderella of women's college basketball.
And when I use the term white, I'm not merely talking about her skin complexion, but what she represents. And that almost all-white team happens to be in Middle America and Iowa. Because the Caitlin Clark fans, of course, all the Caitlin Clark fans outside of Iowa, if you happen to live in Iowa, I expect you to be a Caitlin Clark fanatic. I would imagine there's not much more going on there. So that being said, I would expect nothing less for people inside of Iowa to be a Caitlin Clark fanatic. But for everybody else, for all these other Caitlin Clark fanatics, if we're being honest, the real reason why there's this unnatural and artificial elevation of a Caitlin Clark is because of what she represents. Because like I said earlier, it's not merely about skin color, because we've always had highly skilled white female players in the NCAA. We've had the Dinah Taurasi's, the Sue Birds, the Breanna Stewarts, the Becky Hammonds. Those players that I just named off, when it was their time, they were widely considered the best female basketball players in the nation. And there was no issue. Nobody had a problem with it.
We have the best player in America. And, just saying that because the numbers in this world of analytics, the numbers say that she is. And the whole stat sheet says that she is. And everybody that watched knows it.
And so I'm glad the UConn coach came out and said what he said, because most of these individuals that are Caitlin Clark fanatics aren't necessarily basketball fans. A lot of them are Johnny-come-latelys, and they're only interested in women's basketball now because Caitlin Clark is being pushed and she's being promoted as the greatest thing since sliced bread. And so now everybody's jumping on the bandwagon and saying Caitlin Clark is the best, but in reality, they don't know what they're talking about because they don't know what they're looking at. They don't know what they're watching. They think the best player on the floor is the person who jacks up the most shots and scores the most points. And that couldn't be further from the truth. And so I'm glad that Coach Gino of UConn actually said what he said. I'm glad somebody actually finally said it. Somebody had to say it. Somebody had to say what everybody else was thinking. And that's basically what Coach Gino said. He said what everybody else in the room was thinking, but everybody is afraid of saying it because if you say it, you're just being a hater. They call you a hater if you point out the fact that, hey, Paige is putting up some numbers too. And her numbers are far superior when you look at the analytics. And so I'm going to go ahead and put up a comparison between the two, between Paige and Caitlin Clark. And so let's go ahead and take a look at it. Because if you were just to take a look on face value, you would probably look at the top one, which is Caitlin Clark. You would probably say, based on the numbers, she's the better player. She's averaging 31.8 points a game this year. That's incredible. That's a lot of points. And then you go down below and you take a look at Paige, and she's averaging 21.8 points per game. And then most people will come to the conclusion that Caitlin Clark must be the greatest player that ever lived based on the number of points that she scored. But now let's go ahead and slide down to what really matters. Caitlin Clark is averaging 22.5 field goal attempts per game. She's averaging 22.5 shots per game. That's more shot attempts than Paige averages in points. That's insane. And then now let's go take a look at Paige's field goal attempts. Paige is averaging 14.9 field goal attempts per game. That's somewhat of a normal number for a superstar playing at a D1 level, playing a team sport at a D1 level. almost 15 attempts per game. That's what you expect. But now let's look at actual field goals made. Caitlin Clark is averaging 10.3 field goals made per game, while Paige is averaging 8.1 field goals made per game. So Caitlin Clark is only hitting 2 more shots a game. But Caitlin Clark is almost shooting 14 threes a game, while Paige is shooting 5 threes a game. Caitlin Clark is averaging a respectable almost 38% from three-point range this season. That's a respectable number. That's a good shooter. But then we go take a look at Paige. She's averaging almost 42% from 3 per game. That's incredible. And so I say all that to say this. If you flip these 2 players around and put Paige on Iowa, being allowed to jack up as many shots as Caitlin Clark is, Paige would be averaging almost 40 points a game, no doubt about it. And that's based on the percentages. She's a better shooter than Caitlin Clark. And so if Paige had the green light like that, and she wasn't playing within a team concept, she would be averaging about 40 points a game, no doubt about it. Because there's nothing on that court that Paige can't do. A lot of people forget that Paige was the #1 player coming out of high school. You're talking about somebody that had all the hype. And I don't even follow women's basketball like that, but I remember her being hyped specifically because she had the Kobe Bryant stamp of approval. Her and Kobe Bryant were actually pretty close. And if Kobe Bryant's daughter, God rest her soul, was still here, her and Paige would be competing for a national championship right now. That's how close they were. She learned a lot from Kobe, and she talked about it in some of her interviews. And so you're talking about somebody that has had all the hype coming out of high school, and she's lived up to it. And then on top of that, something that people conveniently overlook. On top of all that, Paige might be one of the best defensive players in all of women's basketball right now. She's guarding the best player every night. She's leading the team in blocks. I think she's leading the team in steals as well. And so she checks multiple boxes other than scoring the basketball. And so it's not even close. When we're talking about Paige and Caitlin Clark, Paige is by far the better player, and it's not even close. But I want to go ahead and double down on what I said earlier. The real reason why Paige isn't being promoted like that is because half of her team is black. More than half of her team is black, I believe. She's got a lot of black players on her team. And so when she wins, everybody else wins. It's not just a win for white America. It's a win for the entire team. Unfortunately, image matters to a lot of people out there. And so that's why they go through all these great lengths to try to pump somebody up that doesn't deserve to be pumped up in the manner that they're being pumped up. Don't get me wrong. She deserves the accolades that she gets. She deserves the respect that she gets, but not to this degree, not to this level. I've never seen anything like it. And then on top of that, Paige isn't somebody that represents what a lot of people in middle America represent. And y'all know what I mean when I say that. But there's a lot of people in middle America that would definitely have a problem with that and definitely have a problem with that image. And so that's the real reason. That's the real reason as to why there's been this over promotion of a Caitlin Clark. It's not simply about skin color. It's about what Caitlin Clark represents. And then on top of that, it's an election year. And so the media is just going overboard with it because it's about image. They don't really care about the game. They're not really interested in the game. They don't care who wins the championship as long as Caitlin wins it. They don't care about the game of basketball like that. It's about trying to get a win for their image. Not necessarily race, but image. Image is everything. But make sure you guys let me know how y'all feel in the comment section below on this one. And make sure you guys hit that like button and that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And as usual, peace and chaos.